Most physios and trainers, they won't say this, but the way they're educated, their whole system is founded upon the principle of not giving the cure, just giving a band-aid, because a band-aid creates a healthy customer, not a healthy athlete. I definitely do get like a lot of hate, and people always attack me just because I'm basically saying the opposite of them, you know? And humans are naturally afraid of the unknown. Athletes being told to ice their injuries, this goes directly against how the human body works. Inflammation is designed to heal your body and bring nutrients via swelling to heal the injury. You're basically preventing the natural healing response, which creates more issues down the road. If you track the money, you'll kind of see the proof in the pudding. These pills literally rip open a hole in my gut lining. And then that was why I had so many issues digesting dairy for so long. They're trying to treat the symptoms and not fix the root cause, because their whole education system was founded upon that principle. Food is information for the human body. Some would argue that food is basically a vehicle of light. It's a vehicle of light storage, and that your body uses food to understand its environment, understand the time of day, time of year, and that can influence your circadian rhythm. I talk so much trash to all these trainers. They have no control of their emotions. And so they basically cover it up with weightlifting, poor diet, and binge eating, all this stuff, and don't even understand how the human body works at a functional level.
The following podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice or opinion. Audience discretion is advised. Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of The Health King's Court, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Health. Today, I have a very special guest with us. He is the founder of Football Entangled, a football performance platform helping footballers play their best and fix their injuries. They focus on the root cause of health, performance, and athleticism. They do this as part of their Entangled training systems, targeting the fascia, mitochondria, and the nervous system directly to create athletic revolution inside the body. They go against much of what you might hear from conventional sports experts. So I'm very interested to chat with a Mr. Taylor Davidson. Taylor, welcome very much to the show.
Hey, Zach, thank you so much. I really appreciate having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you here, my friend. And so let's dive right into it. You're in the area of athletic performance and recovery and health and the holistic side of things. What brought you into being in this field to start?
Yeah, so my story is pretty simple. I grew up as an athlete. My family all played tennis. I didn't love tennis. I ended up falling in love with soccer, but which of course I call football just because that's like the world term for it. As you see in my business, Football Entangled, we work with players all over the world. And basically it was my dream, my ambition to play professional soccer over in Europe. And I achieved parts of that, but that ambition, that drive took me on a journey, which basically that journey took me through trying to heal lots of injuries, trying to heal health issues, trying to get the most out of my body, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, and ultimately achieve my dreams as an athlete. And then during COVID, I started Football Entangled and started doing the same for other athletes to help them avoid the mistakes that I went through growing up and listening to all of the so-called traditional advice. And that could be in the diet world, that could be in the training world, and even as simple as like the clothes you wear and the glasses you wear. And I've looked at everything humanly possible to improve performance and then brought it all back to football, my sport.
So it sounds like you kind of dove down all the different rabbit holes of health and realized how screwed up really it all is in every angle. And now you're just looking to bring the information that you've used to improve your own life to athletes so they can improve their lives and their performance as a result.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is these athletes are worth millions of dollars and they spend millions of dollars doing things that I would argue cause a lot of their injuries. And that's of course with surgeries and so-called sophisticated modern technology for recovery. And it's funny because us humans easily uh we're so easily captured by like the shiny gold, the the new technology, the new gadget, the new laser device, the new supplement. And we don't even understand how the human body works at a functional level. And then yet we have all of these studies based on 8 week untrained athletes. And then we use those studies to determine how we should train world-class athletes. And then even funnier, as an example, in the world of foot science, so uh, podiatry, they study thousands and thousands of unathletic volunteers to create the model of the human foot, like how we think the foot works. And so in mainstream podiatry, they have a view of the foot as a tripod, meaning there are 3 points of contact: the first toe, the fifth toe, and the heel. And so that is the mainstream belief of how the human foot works. But if you study the best athletes across all sports and you understand how they grew up playing barefoot their whole childhood, you'll notice that they don't have a tripod. They much more have a singular point of contact on the ball of the foot in the middle. And then when those guys get injured because of other problems that we can cover later, then the foot doctor says, "Oh, your foot's not working right. Let's fix it." And they use the model of all the unathletic volunteers in these studies over decades to tell the world-class athlete how his foot should work. And that is go ahead.
This is a great place to start because we're going to go from the ground up. Let's do that. Let's go from the ground up because all of our athleticism, all of our movement, all of our functions in our body as we connect with the world, it does all begin with how we connect to the ground. And this is such a fundamentally flawed piece of modern health. People are not treating their feet at all correctly, whether it is at the scientific level, how, these so-called experts kind of look at it at a scientific level and break it down and the physics of it. But to even get into the basics of it, people are completely allowing their feet to atrophy away with these padded shoes while at the same time wearing their shoes that are actually just foot binders, binding their feet into a shoe shape instead of wearing shoes that are feet shaped. It's entirely wrong how people are treating their feet. And that has ramifications throughout the entirety of the body, because whether we are at a standing position, how we have our feet positioned and how we have our feet kind of operating is going to affect our standing posture and wreak havoc if that's incorrect. But then that gets amplified perhaps even more when we start moving around, whether that's a walking pace, a running pace, or all these back and forth movements that an athlete is going to put themselves under extreme circumstances. And so do you want to touch on a little bit more about what people are doing that's wrong with their feet at the actionable level? And you could put it in the frame of athletes or even people in general.
Well, yeah, just even in general, the science of grounding is something that is still seen as woo-woo or like not real. But that science has been around for decades. And for those that don't know what grounding is, basically it's just standing barefoot on natural earth, and you're basically absorbing free electrons, which improves the spin rate of your mitochondria, which is kind of the basis of human health and and recovery, and for any kind of thing that you want to work on. So going back 100 years, 200 years, whatever, humans were always barefoot every hour of the day. They were grounded. And that can still mean they were grounded through natural material shoes. So like moccasins and old leather boots, all these natural materials still allowed you to ground, which allowed you to tap in to the Schumann resonance, which is the frequency that the earth emits. And it's a very subtle and a small thing, but when the human body goes from doing something almost all day to doing it almost never over a large span of time, then you can imagine how a lot of issues start to arise that seem as if they're a mystery, that seem as if they're just bad luck. And so the grounding is the first aspect. The second thing, like you're talking about, just being barefoot and how that actually affects the fascia, affects the nerves, affects the muscles all around the foot ankle complex. Because, like you're saying, the bottom of the foot has tens of thousands of touch receptors because your fascia is basically the body's biggest sensory organ, and it collects information from the ground up so that your brain can choose what muscles to activate and what muscles to relax in order to prevent you from falling over, because your brain doesn't want you to die and suffer. It wants you to stand up, walk, run, sprint so it can eat and then eventually create offspring, which is, our purpose. And so if the feet don't work right, that's going to affect a lot of the other systems upstream in your body. And that's one of the issues that we face a lot with athletes and non-athletes, is that they have something called quad dominance, where basically the three quad muscles are overly activated and the glute muscles are under activated and basically aren't used because the glutes have 85% or more fascial inserts. So basically it means the fascia inserts into the muscle fiber, and that's what creates the unconscious muscular contraction to work during movement, during walking, running, shooting. And we've been able to figure out that all the top athletes in the world have much better glute connections through the fascia from their feet. And that's one of the cornerstones of elite performance. And that same principle can be applied to people that don't play pro sports, but want to be pain free and want to like enjoy themselves when they move around.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack even in what you just said. And so I'll address it kind of point by point. In the grounding, right? I don't understand why this is such a difficult concept for people, because we are no doubt bioelectrical beings. Our bodies have electricity running through us. That's the only reason I can interact with this phone. It's the electricity flowing through my fingers, flowing through my body, interacting with this screen. It's electricity. We have electricity, conductivity, and energy itself within us. Anyone that's really not that difficult to comprehend at a basic level. And anyone that has any comprehension of electricity and electrical devices and electrical mechanics understands that there's two basic elements of electricity. You need the power generation, and then the power current, and you need a grounding path. And anyone that understands electricity, whether it's automotive mechanics or other electrical devices, understands that when the ground pathway is either corroded or corrupted or blocked altogether, the device is not going to function as it's intended to function. Grounding issues create such havoc and such a myriad of issues on any electrical device. So why would our bioelectrical device that we call our body be at all any different? And then it brings into the question, well, how do we ground, right? Because are we going to walk around barefoot all day in our day-to-day life within this modern society? Perhaps not. But you alluded to a possible solution in that there's footwear out there that will still allow you to ground because it's made of either the leather, or I'm seeing hemp materials, or even some blends. But it doesn't even mean that you have to explore different footwear options. I've seen products out there that are basically grounding straps that you can attach to your shoe, and they go from within the inside of your shoe, they wrap around, and then they wrap around to the bottom of the shoe, because all you need is to connect that current. It doesn't even necessarily have to be your whole foot, as long as you get that current and you make that circuit closed to the ground, you can experience the benefits. So it doesn't have to be some crazy change to anyone's life to start experiencing the benefits of grounding. Obviously, if you can get bare skin to bare earth as much as possible, then you can benefit probably more. But it really doesn't have to be that difficult of a thing. And I do encourage anyone to make such simple changes to their life to include that. Or even these days, there's products you get all over the place. You can have grounding sheets. You could have a bed sheet that plugs into a ground. You could have a grounding mat at your desk. And it's really doesn't have to be a very high cost thing that someone can try out. And just if they're at all observant of themselves and aware of their bodily functions and the way their body is feeling, they'd likely experience benefits if they're using a product that is at all legitimate. And it doesn't have to be that complicated or expensive to be legitimate. And so it's such an essential part because, like you said, that electricity is supposed to be flowing and then exiting through our feet, which just kind of wakes up that area. But even beyond that, if we want to get more on the physical side of things and the even probably more comprehensible things, the reflexology of our feet. Our feet are reflexology points. Every area of our foot is tied to different organs within our body, whether it's the big toe, the little toe, any of them in between, and then different areas of the pad of the bottom of the foot. They are connected to different parts of our body and different systems of our body. And within our body's design, that's so beautifully designed, as we are meant to walk in nature, the bottom of our feet receives, like you were saying, that fascial massage or that, massage of the different areas get stimulated. And that is intended to stimulate and keep health going to those different organs within our body. And so when we see modern footwear that has these pads that are so thick, it doesn't even have to be the electrical side of things, just the fact that they're pads and people are kind of walking on these inert padded pillows. Well, now you're eliminating that massage to your assorted areas and that fascial release to your assorted areas that we are designed to be receiving. And that's such a detriment to not just the feet, but of course, all of those different bodily systems. And then, like I was saying, the postural things, if you want to touch on that, especially in the realm of athleticism, when we have a foot that's designed like this, or to my best ability, like this, and you have a heel now of a shoe that makes it like this, how is that not going to have changes to the physics of our entire body? You have your foot like this, now suddenly your lower leg is like this, and then your upper leg is like this, and then your glutes are and hips are tilted like that. And that's such a detriment to people and actually sets people up for a ton of injuries. And I'm sure that's an area that you have experience in your work. Right?
Yeah, as much as we can, I like to get guys out of the modern sneakers and wearing barefoot shoes and just I mean, more or less just walking barefoot as often as they can. I mean, it's funny how sheltered a lot of people are, like wearing socks around the house or wear like one of the funniest questions I get from like some of the younger players is they say, "Oh, can I train barefoot in my socks?" I go, "Well, why would you ask that question? Second of all, your mom's gonna be mad at you for ruining the socks." And then even on top of that, some athletes are so sheltered where the first time they go even walking or like, let's say even jogging barefoot, they have no idea and they just smack their heel on the ground. And I'm like, well, now you're learning basically a direct response to your body not liking you landing on your heel, because it's not how it works. But when you wear shoes, you can do it because you have that thick cushion and you're basically working against how the body was designed to work.
Exactly. When you those shoes, they're meant and sold to be like, this is comfortable. This is helping you not feel the pain. Well, maybe you're supposed to feel that pain because it means you're doing something wrong, just like you were saying. And then naturally you will kind of adjust to not feel that pain, which means that you will start working with your body instead of trying to hack it and like fight against what it was designed to do. And that's such an essential thing. And then, like I was saying, when we wear these shoes that are padded, instead of allowing the foot to kind of interact with the ground as it's meant to, whether that means striking the ground and not being padded in those certain ways, there's muscles in the foot. and they atrophy. And so we have people, athletes or otherwise, walking around with feet that have just kind of been crutched their whole life and are just like little nubs instead of being strong, capable muscles like they're intended to be. It's crazy. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
so that's feet. That's a quick lesson on feet for anyone. So where should we go next? You want to go
Well,
from the ground up even? What's going
yeah, I
on?
mean, just to wrap up on the feet, I mean,
Yeah.
it the funny thing is, for example, I got into barefoot jogging when I was in high school, and I did it for years, and it's great, but you have to understand that there's more to it than just doing barefoot training or just walking. Like that's kind of like just the basics. Like you have to do actual articulate training to regain or fix full functionality of the toes, of the uh, and anterior tibialis tendon, which is the big tendon on the front of the ankle, which allows the ankle to stabilize when it's balancing on one foot, for example, and the arch as well. So those are some things that we work on with our athletes to regain functionality of all those areas of the foot. And then once you bring that back to barefoot training, barefoot jogging, barefoot walking, that's when you actually get results. And so one more point is it's funny online in like the biohacking world, you're seeing a lot of people selling those toe spreaders where you put the like the rubber things in between your toes because there's always people telling you that you have to get your toes a display, right? And the funny thing is in movement, in top athletes, your feet do not splay like that. Like your toes don't go like this. They actually retract like a bird on a branch and they create tension in the foot because that makes the whole foot ankle complex a stiff lever and allows you to absorb and give force back into the ground more effortlessly, like a thumbtack, as like a physics example. And so,
Yeah,
yeah. So
I think that might come from like the overreaction of, and I'm sure like there's sense in it of, hey, your toes have likely been smushed in from modern shoes, so
yeah.
let's mush them back out. But obviously that would ideally happen in a natural way from allowing that to happen and kind of exercising that foot rather than just, okay, let's mash them apart.
Well, if the foot is like this from like modern shoes, it's all like scrunched together, then yeah, like you do want to get the ball of the foot to spread so that you have one kind of area on the ball of the foot. And toe spreaders are good. It just to me, I don't like it because I see all this marketing about them that just wear toe spreaders and then you'll be good. Well, that's like one little piece of the puzzle just to get all the metatarsals to actually spread out again. And then from there, then you can work on the toe retraction, work on the ball of the foot being spread. Almost like when you like puff your chest out, it's the same thing. You like pull back the first and the fifth metatarsal and you create this central area on the ball of the foot. And that's where you land when you run.
Yeah, it's an example of how people have this conventional health mindset and try to apply it to the holistic side of things. They
Yeah.
start to get into it, right? It's, take this pill, try this product, and bam, that's all you got to do. But it's health isn't necessarily that simple. There's much more going on always behind the scenes. And so these are the kind of things that you talk about when you're working with athletes. And how do you find the reception? Athletes have such I feel like a bond to their, Nike cleats. And it's an interesting world that you're in specifically in the high performance realm to kind of completely flip what they think about health or what think they know about health upside down. And so what is that like for working with an athlete?
Well, it's definitely like a wake up call for a lot of guys. It's a reality check. On social media, I definitely do get like a lot of hate and people always attack me just because I'm basically saying the opposite of them, and humans are naturally afraid of the unknown. And especially sometimes when I point out that I want to fix athletes so that they're healthy and pain free forever. Most physios and trainers, they won't say this, but the way they're educated, their whole system is founded upon the principle of not giving the cure, just giving a band-aid, because a band-aid creates a healthy customer, not a healthy athlete. And so if they fix the athlete, then the guy won't come back for more sessions or like treatments or whatever, and then they're out the job. So it's crazy, but physios are incentivized to not heal athletes 100%, because otherwise, if every team had no injuries, there'd be no budget for physios, and they wouldn't have the budget to go buy this equipment and upgrade their office and have all this. It's just because all the players are healthy. So it's like, why would we, you know? And so if you track the money, you'll kind of see the proof in the pudding, as I say.
Yep. Yep. And so what are some of the other major things that you'd say a standard physio or a standard athlete or standard marketing or just the conventional route of going in regards to an athlete's health or even general health? What are some of the major flaws that that you think are like the biggest offenders?
Yeah, well, we can have a long list of these ones, but
What are
I
your
mean,
favorite?
like probably like okay, so first like some simple ones. For example, athletes being told to ice their injuries, being told to put ice on like a swollen ankle or like a swollen knee. And this goes directly against how the human body works, because you're literally putting obviously putting ice on inflammation, which is designed to heal your body and bring nutrients via swelling, blood flow to heal the injury. And when you ice a swollen injury, you're basically preventing the natural healing response and you're creating scar tissue, which creates more issues down the road. For example, like athletes that have ankle sprains, they just ice it all the time, numb the pain, go back to playing, re-sprain it over and over again, and then they have all this scar tissue, which means they lose the functionality in the foot that we were just talking about before. And then that creates long-term issues in their upstream ability in their glutes and in their nervous system to actually function correctly. And I've seen a lot of athletes, their whole career goes downhill from that first ankle sprain because they ice it, they do surgery sometimes, and then the foot itself is basically has lost its root, it's lost its foundation. And so, yeah, icing injuries is a big no-no. It just goes and that also kind of coincides with coincides with NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammation drugs, so Advil and ibuprofen and all these pills that these physios are literally passing on to players in high school. Like I was in high school and I had a physio tell me to take 2 Advils every day before practice. And then like a year later, I was like, wait, mom, it it looks online. These pills literally rip open a hole in my gut lining. And then that was why I had so many issues digesting dairy for so long. Also I was having pasteurized dairy, not raw dairy, but taking all these pills as a young growing athlete that directly damage your gut lining. It's like no wonder. And so there's things like that where basically they're trying to treat the symptoms and not fix the root cause, because their whole education system was founded upon that principle.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I hate icing things, and that's something that's, as I've accrued a couple injuries along the way, everyone says ice, ice, ice. I feel like it's inherently wrong. I hate it. I don't like cold. Get cold away from me. So what should people do instead? What are the actionables? What do people do instead when they do
Yeah.
have these problems? Obviously, nobody should be taking drugs. That's like a given. Don't
Yeah.
be dumb. Stop taking Advil for stuff. But in regards to like, okay, well, what can I do? Should they do hot compresses instead? Should they do heat? Should they, do certain things? What are the alternatives? Because it's easy to say, well, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that.
Yeah.
People are going to be looking for something to do. So what do they do?
Yeah, so I would say you first understand that movement is medicine. So by that, that could be movement under your pain threshold that is targeted to whatever injury you have. That could be your ankle. And at a basic level, movement could mean walking. It could mean uh jogging if that's under your pain threshold. If you're injured, it's probably not. But movement that is real like is the true healing mechanism. And like so like even if like your wrist is sprained, the movement, and you can do 1,000 reps of that and then tell me afterwards how much better you feel, and I guarantee that you'll feel better just from doing that basic movement, because the movement itself will create heat in the tissue there. On top of that, I do like doing what's called a lymphatic bath. So basically, you use Epsom salt, raw milk, and raw apple cider vinegar in a bathtub, and you fill it up to your neck, and then you have like your hands and your head with ice cubes to basically contrast your internal core temperature that's being brought up by the water, obviously, and to help you stay in there for longer. And so, yeah, like heat basically is the answer. Like you want to heat swelling, heat inflammation, help the swelling, help the inflammation, and avoid foods that are marketed as anti-inflammation, because if that's the marketing on the food, it literally is telling you that they have no idea how the body works and they're just trying to trick you. Same with like antioxidants and like antibacterial and keto, vegan, all these things. They're all just going against how the body works at the base level.
All right, all right, all right. You're throwing out a lot of different areas to dive into. What foods are marketed as anti-inflammation to address that first one?
Yeah, I think like ginger, turmeric, like all these kind of like superfoods, they usually try and throw on anti-inflammatory just as like a blank benefit just across the board. That's where I see it all the time, like things like ginger and turmeric, where they tell you, oh, like have like a drink, throw in some turmeric because it's anti-inflammatory. And the funny thing is like the whole marketing of benefits, like no one actually regulates like whether or not your thing actually does what it says it does.
So
And
are you
and that goes into like supplements.
Oh, definitely. And so are you against things like the ginger and the turmeric? Or are you just saying like, yeah, they might be good for some things, but they don't actually do that? Or are you saying they do that, so we should avoid them? What's your
Well, I think when you view inflammation as bad, and then you sell foods or supplements or pills that are anti-inflammation, that whole paradigm is wrong. It's not how the body works at all. I think there are certain ways that you can use like those root vegetables, like raw ginger, raw turmeric, um, garlic, and stuff. But generally, I would avoid having those at the same time as your other food, because they can affect the digestion of like raw meat or raw eggs or raw milk, raw honey, uh, raw fish.
Yeah. So that sounds like you are an advocate of what, the primal diet? Is that how you describe it? Or raw food and raw meats? Let's get into that.
I mean, I just call it eating real food. That like I don't try to put a name on it. I'm just I just want to nourish my body with real food that's local, organic as possible, of course. But and it's sad because nowadays the word organic has lost its meaning because of all the corruption and how foods are certified. But just as good as possible, meaning they don't stuff the cows with vaccines, or they don't stuff the cows with like soy and corn and all that stuff. Uh, as an example. Uh, but basically, real food, and that means local, organic, fresh, in season. Because local and in season are really important, because there is there is an aspect to food that is seasonal. For example, fruits grow in the summer, fruits don't grow in the winter. You have access to more fats in the winter, less fats in the summer. And your body was meant to eat in this cycle because the food that's grown in your climate is basically synced with the amount of UV sunlight that you get at that latitude and your location. So that's why fruit and higher carbohydrate based foods are grown closer to the equator. And that's also why I have a huge problem when, for example, people in England or people in Canada, they're eating bananas in the winter. And basically what this does is causes a deuterium offload into the mitochondria, which basically is kind of like throwing concrete into your engine. It's basically just chaos in the mitochondria because you are confusing your body, because food is information for the human body. Some would argue that food is basically a vehicle of light. It's a vehicle of light storage, and that your body uses food to understand its environment, understand the time of day, time of year, and that can influence your circadian rhythm, as you would imagine, which of course is kind of being proven as the most important thing nowadays for health.
Yeah, absolutely. And this gets into an entire societal conversation because obviously we are so disconnected from society and I mean, or from the world and the natural rhythms of really everything in its entirety. And so is how does someone even work with the natural existence and like what they're supposed to eat when all food is sourced from the supermarket or the farmers whatever unless you're able to of course grow it yourself. It's a difficult thing, but I want to touch on something because you're obviously an advocate for the consumption of meat and I agree with you there wholeheartedly. But the language that you're using in regards to food being a vehicle for light is also something I agree with. But it's also something that's usually used by, I would say, the plant-based and vegan community, saying that these fruits and vegetables, they have those like measurable bits of light in them, and because they were directly grown by the sun, and so that sunlight is out in them. And then they say that meat is actually dead and it doesn't contain any light in there. But you're of course an advocate for meat. So is meat also a vehicle for light? What's going on there?
Well, the cows have amazing digestive tracts to eat all those plants for me, and then I can enjoy the cow. That's how life works. That's the obvious cycle of nature that's right in front of you, outside, that you can see every single day. Nature is a dynamic cycle of give and take. You know, our bodies pass away and we rot into the ground. The same thing with plants and other animals and the herbs and bees. It's basically a big combination of everything. And some would argue that for example, the Amazon forest is actually not a forest. It's just the world's biggest biodynamic farm because it's a natural combination. It's a natural ecosystem of everything working together self-sustainably. And it's a living thing on its own. It doesn't require human intervention. It doesn't require compost from the store. It doesn't require to buy seeds from the store from other region and plant flowers or bushes or fruit in the Amazon forest. It lives on its own, and that's a magical thing that is beyond the prowess of us right now.
Yeah, certainly most people. I think there are farmers though that are aware of the way certain things work. I watched this one documentary. I think it was called The Biggest Little Farm. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
It's a super cool documentary of people that started a little homestead for themselves and they started learning kind of the way that nature works in exactly the way that you're saying and how everything's supposed to work with each other. And instead of, just spraying pesticides on some rows of a monocrop field, we can we can create environments and ecosystems like we see in nature of everything working in harmony. And, you bring in the bees and you bring in the birds and the rats and the snakes and everything balances each other out. And then everything thrives, including the produce that's grown in these environments, because everything is kind of has the assorted pieces to the puzzle versus, modern agriculture, which is, of course, garbage and is just meant to produce yield to be able to sell. Doesn't matter the quality of whatever that yield is, or if it is actually even just poison. But that's
That's right.
So, and just to back up and talk about the light conversation, are you a fan of cooking foods and cooking meats, or cooking meats a lot, or are you of the mindset that cooking actually destroys the light and destroys nutrients, and we should be eating things as raw as possible always, meat or otherwise?
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting conversation because a lot of people will instantly be caught off guard, or they'll instantly have a stigma towards like raw meat, for example, or raw eggs or raw milk. And the funniest thing is like a lot of these foods are available in certain cuisines around the world going back hundreds of years. In France, the carpaccio, tartare, obviously sushi is raw fish, and other cultures, like almost all cultures have a few recipes where it involves raw meat. And so this is not like a new thing. It's not like something that someone just made up out of nowhere. So in general, my belief, and this is based on lots of experience with mentors and lots of 10 plus years of research and trial and error. And basically, if you're eating food that doesn't have bacteria and enzymes, you can't digest it. So on that notion, understanding that your body survives off the functionality of bacteria in your body. So if you didn't have that, you'd be dead right now. And so to eat food that does not have that bacterial life, the enzymes, the ability to assimilate into your tissue correctly, is kind of like human ego that we can create these supplements without basically like nature's stamp of approval with the assortment of bacteria and enzymes to go along with those things into the body. It just doesn't work if you try to cheat the system, basically. And so going to your question about cooking, generally for me, fat on it, and like whether or not that's animal fat on the meat, whether that's fat from a coconut, from avocado, from olive oil, from like butter, those fats are extremely sensitive to change in temperature. And so, i.e., cooking or melting or anything like that affects the chemical composition of those fats considerably. And one of the guys that I learned from a lot, Jonas van der Planets, talks a lot about how when you heat fat, you're increasing the molecule size by 50 times. And you also create other secondary toxins and other things that are not advantageous for the human body when you alter the chemical structure of fat by burning it, by melting it, by cooking it, what have you. And so from that point of view, in my personal experience, anecdotal, whatever you want, and also working with thousands of athletes over the years, generally raw fat digests a lot better than cooked fat. And you feel a lot lighter, leaner, your brain feels better, your skin is better, you have less acne, you have just less problems across the board. And so that takes us one step closer to the protein aspect. How can you digest meat without the bacteria and enzymes? And why do most natural meats come with fat included? You know, meat usually has some kind of animal fat amongst the meat, even with super lean cuts, you have fat on the cut. And even organ meats do have organ fat around the organs. And it's because the human body was designed to optimally digest protein with fat together. And so it's another one of these human misnomers to separate foods into proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, and to have you take these protein isolates, these powders, and it's just protein. Is literally there's no fat involved. So even that on its own creates problems in the human body in terms of how you in terms of how you digest it, and then also how you assimilate it into new tissue, new cells. So my answer is it's generally it, and frankly, just try on your own. You'll see. Just have fresh, unfrozen, high quality meat, and you'll feel a lot better afterwards. I think it's the way to go.
Now, is that how important is that nuance that you added at the end? We're talking about fresh, unfrozen, alleged, or I would assume you'd say like fresh from a butcher or something. Would you recommend someone grab their, cut of steak from ShopRite or Walmart and just chow down on that raw? What's the difference there?
Yeah, definitely. You want to be very uh, detailed with how you source your meat. One of the big funny things about sourcing meat and this whole idea of raw meat, is it safe or not, is all of the stories that you hear about raw meat not being safe is generally from franchised corporate fast food chains like Chipotle, McDonald's, Panera Bread, where all their meat is frozen beforehand at huge distribution centers. Then it's sent to all the individual stores, where then the frozen meat is defrosted, and then it's cooked in the kitchen. So usually, where you have those news about food poisoning, food food foodborne illness, all those kind of things, is where when the meat got defrosted, then they cooked it. They didn't cook it all the way, so there was some raw meat that was defrosted raw meat, which the freezing process is what creates the food poisoning. It's what creates the bad bacteria that actually creates the symptoms of getting sick from eating raw meat. And so that is basically the crux of the issue, is that when you mess with food, when you mess with the natural supply chain, i.e., when you hunt and kill food, you take it back, you cut it, skin it, and you eat it, that's fresh as it can be. But when you freeze things and they're in the freezer for 2 months, then like the meat is shipped across the country, then defrosted, and then cooked halfway. Then you can imagine how there's a lot of issues.
Yeah, and sometimes it's even farther than across the country. It's meat shipped around the world.
Yeah,
Product
that's right.
I've seen in the stores, product of Australia, and I'm in the United States. It's
Yeah, how is that going?
so what the hell do we do, man? Because unless we're hunting and killing our food, or we have like the ability to go to the grocery store every 3-4 days, where we can only keep meat in the fridge instead of freezing it, what is what do we even do? Is it?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is nature always has the answer. So, for example, let's talk about eggs. In normal grocery stores, they spray eggs with a chemical wash that cleans the enzymes off the exterior of the shell. Those enzymes actually keep eggs good at room temperature in the cabinet on the shelf for 4 weeks. But they don't want that, because that means they would sell less eggs. So you can get fresh local eggs from a farmer, from someone that does it correctly, and the eggs will last for a month on the counter, no problem. And there's even like old wives' tales where you put eggs into glass jars and you fill it with water and lime, I believe, and it basically creates like a vacuum seal for the eggs. And then and then those eggs can last for years, and break them out and have them raw, and they're totally fine.
Yeah, yeah. It's such an insane thing how anti anything that's natural this whole world is. And we talked about it with the bacteria and the enzymes. All these things are looked at as bad, and they're actually the most important, most essential part of humanity and health as a whole. Because like you said, we are all bacteria. The only reason we exist is because we have bacteria all around our body doing their assorted jobs. And our entire modern medical system is antibacterial. It's antibacterial. That's it. The first thing any doctor says, anytime you walk into any doctor's office with anything going on, they throw steroids and antibiotics at you. Oh, take some antibiotics, antibiotic ointment, antibiotic this, antibiotic that. And it's no wonder everyone's so messed up because you're going against bacteria, which bacteria is life, biotic, but it's life. And you are going against life. And there's really no good way to do that. And just like you said on the eggs, you wash off that bacteria and that enzymes that's supposed to be protecting the eggs. Now that protection's gone. That made me think of babies, how if you have a birth in a hospital for some reason, I don't know why people would do that, have a birth in an emergency scenario. But when people do that, the first thing that they do is wash the baby. They want to wash the baby as soon as possible. A baby's born, much like an egg, with this coating on them that has enzymes, has bacteria that's there to protect them and serves a function. And they just, let's sanitize that baby real quick. I hate seeing all these sanitizing stations everywhere. And obviously there was an uptick in them in the last couple of years. But it's so insane how people are like, yes, let me just destroy the biome on my hands. That'll keep me healthy. Meanwhile, you've destroyed your skin, just, allowed chemicals into your body. You're allowing the bad so-called bacteria or bacteria that shouldn't be there to kind of flourish because now you've destroyed the good ones. I'm team Dwight Schrute. I think we need desanitizing stations all over the place. We need some
dirt.
We need some bowls of dirt. Every time we should start that movement. Every time we see a sanitizing station in public, we should just place a bowl of dirt next to it.
Yeah, bowl of dirt, some plants, and like some squirrels.
Yeah. We need to start desanitizing ourselves. It's really crazy, man.
You always know someone has no idea what they're doing when you see them break out the little bottle of like the Purell, or what do they call that? Just like
Purell.
Yeah, Purell. And like there's ingredients in those that have been proven to cause some pretty serious health issues.
Oh, absolutely. At a baseline level, I mean, the most pure of them are like alcohol, which again is just going to wreck it's going to pass right through your blood, right into your bloodstream there. And then obviously you get into all the cutesy, glitzy, glammy ones with have, fragrance and this and that and all sorts of things in them. It's crazy, man. But yeah, we've branched off a lot into different things. So I'm just going to ask you, what are some of the other biggest offenders? What else is some of the biggest things that people have kind of upside down and inside out about life and health? And again, you could relate it to athletes as much as you want or society at large.
Well, yeah, I don't want to leave your last question hanging because I wanted to give a final answer in terms of what do you do? Well, ultimately, anyone watching this, wherever you live, you need to develop a network, people that you can rely on, a support system. And I say support. It doesn't have to mean like emotional support. It just means a network. Someone that makes eggs, someone that is the butcher, the fishmonger, the cheesemaker, the honey guy. All these people should be on your highest priority contact list because they literally are providing you with life, with sustenance. And so wherever I live, it's like if I ever move, it's the first goal is to network, shake hands, eye contact, make a strong bond with these people, support them because that is their livelihood. And if they go out of business and you're stuck with the only supplier is Walmart, it's not a good life. All right. So make an effort to go to the farmer's market, talk to your local people, support them with your money because that's what counts.
Yeah, especially when, obviously from the top down, those people are targeted so heavily
That's
and,
right.
through regulations and policies that are allegedly to protect the people, they're really just to destroy the people and destroy the public and destroy the farmers that are out there, putting out those good products that are healing everybody because they can't have that when they're trying to push their poison out there in alternative. And that's why we
Mm,
see it's crazy, man. The crackdowns on farms selling just real milk.
yeah.
It's like the biggest deal to the government to just sell milk as it is. And there's been another like resurgence of like a push of raiding these farms and like destroying them just for selling milk as it comes out of the cow. It's nuts, man.
Yeah. I think people have to wake up if they want to protect themselves.
Yep. Yep. And not everyone will. Not everyone will.
Yeah. That's
It's
kind of the ultimate intelligence test.
Yeah. What are you putting in your body? Do you even have that right? Um,
Exactly. So to answer your second question, let's see what's next. We can talk about cold showers and ice baths because
okay.
that's a recent thing that's been all over social media. And I had a funny video I think I made like a year ago where I was in the shower and there was cold water on my head and then I got like the hook was stop doing cold showers. And the funny thing is it's so nuanced, but of course in life and in social media you have to kind of put your foot down for to get people to listen. And why did I say don't do cold showers anymore? Well, it's because people use the the shock. They use the cortisol spike. They use the adrenaline from the cold shower to compensate for their poor lifestyle, for their sleep, for their for their circadian rhythm being messed up, for basically not waking up with a good amount of energy as it was on your own. You had to go externally, force your body to create uh, stress hormones to create this artificial sense of energy. And so that's my biggest thing is in our lives, we have a bucket of stress. We have so many things that we can put into it. And that can be like as an athlete, that can be how many games are you playing? How many extra sessions are you doing? How far are you traveling for these games? All those things factor into your stress bucket, and you have to ask yourself: does this cold shower add more, or does it help reduce the stress bucket? I want things to reduce my stress. I don't want to add more stress to my stress bucket. And the reason why some people get frustrated is because I do also recommend going into the ocean, which also can be cold. So I think they're like for me, I use them as different tools. I, I don't think it's good for these morning routines, wake up, cold shower, uh, Wim Hof breathing, uh, turmeric and ginger coffee shot, and also coffee is the other one. Everyone stop drinking coffee. It's terrible for you. But anyways, uh, yeah, basically I want the body to nourish itself, to grow and develop, and be a energized being on its own. I don't want to have to rely on things like cold showers to artificially spike my cortisol, which then creates the symptoms of being energized. And what it really does is it just makes you age faster. And and that same theme, you can also talk about how so many people are starting to do intermittent fasting and they fast all the way until 12 or 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock p.m. And they're missing the best window to eat food, which is breakfast, because that is a zeitgeist to your circadian rhythm, to your leptin sensitivity. And if you don't eat, and of course, like you can skip some mornings, it's not a big deal, but like in general, your circadian rhythm can be influenced by when you eat foods. There are loads of studies that show that eating the same meals but at different times, those foods are digested differently because you have different bacteria present at different times of the day. That's why all my athletes don't eat dinner after sunset because it's too late. It's dark out. Food is meant to be eaten during the hours of sunlight because of how the sunlight influences our microbiome and then how the microbiome thus digests the food. And so that's one more example of how all these things are interconnected. And is again one more example of why I talk so much trash to all these trainers that want to talk about performance and speed and strength and health and recovery, but yet they're inside a gym all day, getting no sunlight, eating microwave burritos, or they're counting their calories like nerds, like bodybuilders with their broccoli and their chicken and their rice, and they can't smile for the sake of their life. They have no control of their emotions. And so they basically cover it up with weightlifting and poor diet and binge eating, all this stuff. And so that's my rant.
Taylor's just coming for everybody today. Let's dig in. Let's dig in. All right. So cold showers is the first thing you said. That extrapolates out to the cold, like on the injuries that we were saying as well, of how it's probably not so good for your body. It's creating a shock. It's creating like a concern. Obviously, if you don't understand the difference between the ocean and a cold shower, you're just a moron. The ocean itself is very grounding. The ocean itself comes with the resonant frequency and sound that is very healing, the sounds of nature. Obviously, it's ideal if you're not in a very polluted ocean. And obviously, it's ideal if that ocean is warm. There are places where the ocean is warm, and those are obviously much more enjoyable and beneficial than cold, but perhaps they could be beneficial either way. The salt content could also be beneficial, get those electrolytes and stuff. Being around the beach, which itself is just a bunch of crushed up crystals, has that piezoelectric kind of aspect to it. Again, it's further grounding, further frequency absorption from nature. That's all wonderful. Yeah, I don't know. I think people that like cold are just crazy. I think it's like a maybe a bit of like sadism or self-masochism. They just want to, do that. But also, I think a lot of it is cope. I think there's so much pride that's taken in I took a cold shower. I took an ice bath. Look at me. You really have accomplished nothing. But then they feel like they've accomplished something because they did something that was, I guess, kind of difficult to do and put themselves through, when at the end of it, they've only just harmed themselves and just had a shit experience, and they feel like they've done something. And so it's kind of like a pseudo accomplishment throughout the day. But yeah.
It's actually this topic is something I've been like that I've been thinking a lot about recently and grappling with. And I think it basically what it is, it's like passive action. And it even goes to the sense of how many videos there are online about the passive income. And it's like people want something for nothing, Yep. And so it's the same thing. It's like they want to just stand in the cold shower, do nothing, passively benefit, and then they'll magically turn into a top athlete. Like, no.
Yeah, I think most people that are taking cold showers probably are just taking those showers in like fluoride, chlorine,
that too.
water itself without a filter on that shower, giving themselves clean water. So, I mean, I don't get it. But yeah, cold showers are for dorks, man. Coffee. Oh, man, you're coming for coffee. And my coffee journey is interesting. I never drank coffee until maybe about a year ago, where I was convinced otherwise to give it a try. Now, is there a healthy way to do coffee? Is it a universally bad thing? Can someone use it as a stimulant, which of course it is? It, we all understand it. It kind of like spikes the central nervous system, kind of wakes it up, jolts it, gives it something to maybe address. Is there a way to use it with and get that jolt without relying on it? And is it maybe demonized or kind of has this counter culture about it because most people just don't go about it healthy? or most people do rely on it and don't maintain their systems? Like, what about those people that, yeah, I prefer a cup of coffee here and there when I want to get something done or just want a little boost of energy. But if there's a day or a week or a month where I don't have it, I'm still getting all that done as well. Is there nuance to it?
Oh yeah, I think for sure there's nuance. I think there's multiple layers of nuance. Like first of all, just the quality, because I mean,
Yeah.
the coffee from Starbucks is not gonna be organic, and like the actual beans that you're sourcing are they covered in pesticides, heavy metals, or there's a number of quality assurances that you want to look at in terms of like, is this, because ultimately it's from a bean, you know, beans and legumes and plants, those are like peasant foods, you know, and like, so those are important to just source correctly if you want to do it. Um, I can say from personal experience, I was, I guess I was proudly like addicted to chocolate. So the cacao bean, which is like similar to the coffee bean. Basically, they both have caffeine. They both spike your cortisol, and they both provide somewhat of a surge of energy. And generally, this is because the people that are addicted to those kind of stimulants, they're so stuck in their sympathetics. Their nervous system is so unable to relax that they have to keep it going with continued coffee or chocolate or even like green tea. Like people just have so much green tea and they just like stack up the caffeine over time. So the nuance with coffee and also with chocolate, and it's just basically like, are you using it to cover up your poor lifestyle, or do you already have a good lifestyle and you're just kind of like, well, it tastes good. I can go to the coffee shop Saturday morning. I can meet some girls, or I can hang out with friends. It's just like it's like part of the experience, versus like, do you have like some insane coffee maker at your house and you're just like pumping coffee every morning? You know, that's the nuance I would say.
I think there's difference between cold brew and hot brew as well.
Yeah, that's right.
I think cold brew is a lot healthier because then when you heat it and you get that super heat, you're destroying a lot of the stuff and it becomes more acidic and stuff. So I'm like team cold brew all the way. It's much better.
Well, also on top of that, the question is the milk you're using, is it raw? Is it pasteurized milk?
True.
If you put if you put raw milk into hot coffee, you're kind of like pasteurizing it.
Yeah, yeah, true. I didn't even think about that. I don't put anything in mine. It just is what it is.
Okay, yeah,
But
there you
yeah,
go.
obviously you get into a whole realm of unhealthiness with what people are adding to their coffee in the form of
Yeah,
pasteurized milk, cream, sugars of different varieties, and obviously there's a lot of different chemical additives and different creamers and
that's
whatever
right.
additives people put in.
Flavors and yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And now we're just further modifying what there was. If you want to make the argument that God gave us the beans to use, well, He didn't, say, "Hey, take it and put this, that, and the other chemical garbage in it." All right, so maybe we could keep our coffee, right?
well, just like experiment and just like try it out. I mean, all I can say is like, well, if you've been drinking coffee for 10 years, try 2 weeks with no coffee. Just see how you feel. And the coffee will still be there after 2 weeks. It's not going anywhere. There's no like only like 5 spots left and it's gone forever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it's just another example of it is a tool.
Yeah,
It could be a very powerful tool, caffeine itself. And, like any powerful tool, it can be heavily abused and misused and can do a lot of harm in the hands of an unconscious user. Because that's what it really comes down to. What you're mentioning is listen to your body, tune into your
that's right.
body, observe what's actually going on, observe what the entire environment of your body is, and only then can you understand what one element is doing within that environment and what that interaction is. So the advocation above all, I think we could absolutely agree on is a conscious observance and a conscious awareness of what you're doing. Pay attention to what you're doing and what's going on. But the breakfast thing, that's very interesting because it's something that obviously there's a lot of what's interesting in your perspective on breakfast to me is that a lot of your things that you've shared so far have been counter to the conventional.
Mm.
But the conventional approach to food is very breakfast centric, is very breakfast oriented. And now the developing kind of counter movement or maybe whatever you want to call it, that's growing in recent times is no, skip that, do the intermittent. But now you're going back and saying, no, actually, there is merit to the breakfast, and that is actually the most important time to eat meals. That's very interesting, and that I've
Mhm.
noticed that as an outlier in your kind of stance in relation to the other ones that you've shared. Um, that's a very interesting. Is it a blanket thing that people should be eating breakfast? Is it because my thoughts on it and through my experience and through my just trying different things out or reading things, one, we have to separate the conversation between men and women because men and women's bodies are on different cycles. Women are on a 28-day cycle, men are on a 24-hour cycle, and our hormones work entirely different.
Yep.
And so what I've been kind of advocating for in whatever is for men to perhaps do something like intermittent fasting. But again, the problem is when you get nerdy and dorky about all these things. I don't like to say, it has to be a 16-hour window, an 18-hour window,
Yeah.
this and that. What I find optimizes my own life is wake up, only drink water for some time, get some electrolytes with some salts, whatever, maybe some coffee later on, and then eat later in the evening. And I don't actually, I like to eat right before bed myself. I know there's a whole thing about it. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's bad for your digestion. But it just happens to fit my lifestyle, and it feels great. Obviously, you want to be eating clean stuff, but so I kind of like the concept that eating at the beginning of the day kind of encumbers the body in a way, and then if we don't eat, we can kind of focus on everything that we have going on. And to me, that fits into like an ancestral kind of realm of things where it's like, okay, if we were at one point cavemen and going and hunting and gathering and this and that, we would have to hunt throughout the day and then come home at night with the hunt that we got and then eat that at night. And so it's interesting your perspective there. Do you want to dive a little deeper into why, or
Yeah, 100%.
a counterpoint to any of that?
Yeah, so like you said, it's nuanced for sure. And generally, how I work with an athlete, I'll look at where he is currently. Because some guys they'll already have pretty good leptin sensitivity, which for those that don't know, leptin is a hormone that generally controls weight gain or weight loss. And so athletes or people in general that have a tough time gaining weight or a tough time losing weight, generally, if you realign their circadian rhythm with the food aspect in the morning, with the light aspect in the morning, and with avoiding artificial lights at night, and just basically like oh yeah, also the grounding in the morning, but basically all the different tools that one can use to manipulate their circadian rhythm, then they can fix their leptin sensitivity, and then that will allow them to gain weight if they're underweight or lose weight if they're overweight much more easily than before. But to answer your question, I want to explain the context. So I played D1 soccer for a long time. I played pro soccer for many years. We had training at 10:30 a.m., right? So for 3 or 4 almost, yeah, for over 5 years, I skipped breakfast every day. I trained at an elite level, and sometimes we had gym before or gym after. So train for 2 hours in the hot sun in California, in the gym for an hour. Then I'd eat breakfast at 1 p.m. And that's when I was 18, 19, 20 years old in my prime. Looking back, now I know that I was severely aging myself faster than than I would have if I was taking care of myself the way I would now. And why is that? Because it's one more thing you're adding to the stress bucket. So I'm speaking from optimal performance and longevity in the context of performance. So I want to perform at my best and then do my best for as long as possible, as many years as possible. So if I'm just working a desk job, or I'm just kind of like an entrepreneur, I don't train that seriously, like then maybe I'd be fine just to skip breakfast every now and then. Doesn't matter. But the basic kind of quantum biology perspective is that every time you skip breakfast, you're missing a window to further optimize your circadian rhythm. And that breakfast doesn't have to be carbohydrates. It can be protein and fat, which is pretty easy to digest. And on top of that, if you're doing what I talk about with the raw eggs, the raw meat, and some of the vegetable juices that we talk about, then that's very easy on the body. For example, raw egg is digested in 20 minutes, whereas cooked eggs much longer. And so basically, by eating breakfast, it's just one more way that you can lower the stress in your stress bucket. Because if you're playing pro soccer, if you're playing pro sports, if you're training every single day, you want your training to be the stress. You don't need extra things because, it's a bell curve. There's here and it goes up and then there's goes down. So more isn't better in that context. That doesn't mean if I have like a super busy day, like I might miss breakfast. Yeah, it happens. But in general, I try to get all my athletes to have a good, healthy, strong breakfast. And so to answer your earlier question about isn't that the mainstream opinion as well, to have a big healthy breakfast? Well, the funny thing is that started when cereal was first coming out, and basically was a big marketing paradigm, basically a big psychological operation to create demand for cheap grains with sugar and flavorings. And so they told you breakfast was really healthy. Eat your cereal. And then, at least back then, they were having like clean grains with raw milk. Now it's terrible garbage with pasteurized garbage. So things have changed. But I think, like, looking at the underlying work from doctors like Dr. Jack Cruz, Dr. Jay Montgomery, Dr. Leland Stillman, all these guys talk about the mitochondria and how circadian rhythm plays a role in weight loss and muscle gain and testosterone. For example, any guy that wants to improve testosterone and you are skipping breakfast, you're directly sabotaging that. Because there are certain windows of the morning where if that window is not used to create testosterone, you lose out on that window until the following day. And so in this token, I'm going to combine the ideas of the breakfast with the food and the morning sunshine, because they're both zeitgeist for the mitochondria and for your circadian rhythm, which influence how well and how much of the hormones your body produces. So that morning sunlight triggers dopamine, triggers serotonin, triggers the optimal production of cortisol in the morning. So the more that you can get in tune with your circadian rhythm, every biometric in the body is going to improve.
Now, what if a body doesn't feel hungry? Should we force food into it for the name of, this is going to be good. I should be eating during this time, but like I really just am not hungry. Should someone eat anyway in that circumstance, or should someone listen to their body and only ever give it food when it feels like it's calling for it?
Well, that's a perfect question, because one of the biggest things that I have to work on with guys is helping them find their intuition, helping them find their body, and actually learning to listen to their body. Because If you don't have an appetite in the morning, that is a huge red flag of a circadian mismatch. So you should, like, basically, ideally, you should be waking up hungry. That's how in this paradigm, that's how the body is designed to work. If your appetite doesn't spike until 12, 1, 2 p.m., that's telling you that your circadian rhythm is that far behind. See what I mean? If
Yeah.
you wake up in the morning, get the sunrise in your eye. You have full body sunlight and you're grounded from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. and then even longer if you can. I guarantee you your appetite will improve and you'll be so hungry in the morning. And you'll find that how food is digested in the morning versus that same food eaten at 8 p.m. is a world of difference. And so that's basically the underlying reasoning to why you should trust your body and go off how it feels, but also be aware enough to realize that maybe because of previous lifestyle choices, you don't have a fully developed grasp of that gut instinct, of the intuition.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the great, overwhelming, nuanced point to it. Really, we should be learning to listen to our bodies and being in tune with our bodies, because there isn't necessarily like a one size fits all. This is then and this is now and this always and this never. Obviously, there are some things that, yes, everyone can agree on. That's shit always. These are probably some universally good ideas. But, the specific applications, and this is an example, again, like I was saying before, of how people search for like the easy route out of, okay, yes, that, and then this always. And they just want to, boom, kind of iron skull, just do that just because this is the good thing to do. Meanwhile, no, the things are a little more fluid than this always, that never. And so with the time we have left, I want to learn about what it is that you do. So when you work with athletes with your business, Football Entangled, you are kind of considering all of these topics that we've talked about and more, and kind of work with them to just basically change their life and optimize their performance from the ground up by allowing them to optimize all these different elements to themselves. What does that look like? What are you working with them one-on-one? You're teaching classes? What is the process of working with Football Entangled?
Yeah, so we have what's called Entangled Training Systems, which is our own software that we created on our website, and in the what's called the Entangled Locker Rooms, which is our paid, basically our paid coaching groups, which is like a multi-layered group chat of sorts, where I have coaches under me that I've trained that are in there answering questions. We have about 400 people in there right now at the moment. And basically, there's ongoing discussions, Q&A, new articles, just like I usually make something new for the tribe every like once a week. Obviously, like just like depending on what, there is to talk about, but I have a big community that's behind Entangled training systems on our website and on our own app. And then when I have a guy that comes to me that's a professional football player, maybe, has a big budget, we'll say, uh, and his job and his job's on the line, all this stuff, I generally tell them to not buy my courses and to work with me one-on-one, because they don't have the attention span or the time or the energy to basically DIY, which by DIY, I mean buy my course, read it all, understand it all, watch the videos. It just, if you're a pro athlete and you're making 100K a week, like just think about how not intelligent it is to waste all that time and energy on a course when you could just pay more and get the attention that you deserve because you're a high level player. So that's how I work. Basically, we have semi-pro, lower level pro, and amateur players that want to get to the top. They're in my paid community. And then we have high level pro guys that I work with one-on-one, and that can be in person or online.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so if someone's interested in connecting with you, where should they go? You want to mention the website again? Do you have socials that they could follow? Or if they're just interested in learning more about what you're saying, where can people just get more of Taylor's information?
Well, if you want to learn more about becoming a world-class performer on the football pitch, you can check out Football Entangled on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and the website is entangledtribe.com.
Awesome. And so to close us off here, is there any particular take-home message you'd like to leave an audience with? And you could even separate into two if you'd like. If there's any message that you'd like to leave to high-performance athletes or those that like to be high-performance athletes about their health, or is there a different message you'd like to leave to the general public about their health? I'll leave that as open-ended for you.
Well, I can say, long story short, that injuries, health issues, dysfunction, trauma, et cetera, all these things don't exist. They're all just opportunities for you to improve and to upgrade who you are. And the tools to do that are within your grasp, naturally, holistically, comprehensively. They're not solved by doctors, by pills, by surgeries, by therapies. They're solved by you, by action. And the better knowledge you have at your disposal to act swiftly with speed, which, as you know, is law number one, the sooner you'll be closer to your dream state, to the person that you want to be, to that future self that you've always been striving to be.
Yeah, that's a fantastic message. I always advocate for people spending every waking moment of their day advancing on some front of their life. Everything that you should be doing should be bringing you more towards achieving a goal or achieving your existence of your dreams. And if not, you're wasting your time and you're hurting yourself. And if you love yourself, which you absolutely should love yourself, you should be chasing your dreams in some sort of way. So thank you very much for that message, Taylor. And thank you very much for coming on the show.
Zach, well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and the platform. And I'm looking forward to the growth of this podcast. Exciting stuff coming soon.
You too, my friend. I look forward to seeing the great things that you do as well. Thank you very much. Occasionally, when I think about it, I struggle to comprehend why an average person doesn't take steps to optimize their existence and consider holistic well-being and what they can implement holistically in their life to get better results. Now, when we talk about athletes, this increases infinite times. It's insane to me that someone wants to take their body and use it to perform athletic feats and perform in competition, potentially make a living off of their body, using their body as a machine of high performance. I struggle to grasp how someone can live this life and not consider their body in a holistic way. I struggle to grasp how they cannot look into things beyond that which they already know, that which they're presented in the everyday performance human realm. It's I have no idea. I just don't understand people's mentality. Why would you not want to optimize your existence and your performance as an athlete? It's nuts. Big thank you goes out to Taylor for coming on the show. Be sure to check out his content, check out his programs. He very much seems like he knows what he's talking about. I might not agree with 100% of what he mentioned today, but he brings a lot of interesting information to the table, that's for sure. And I don't doubt at all that he's helped many athletes that have come his way. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Be sure to let us know what you thought in the comments. Do you agree with what he said? Do you disagree? Make sure you're subscribed to the channel wherever you're listening. This way you get notified whenever I post a new episode. There are plenty more coming your way, and I'll be firing them out as quickly as I can for you. As a reminder, you can check out my content at zachthehealthking.com. If you or someone you know is interested in coming on the show to talk about a matter of holistic health and wellness or ancient wisdom, please do give me an email at zachthehealthking@gmail.com. You're listening to the Health King's Court. Ancient wisdom, modern health.